mean any disrespect to any architect out there, but what I saw happening back in those days is the architect would promote a house. Let's say they promoted at $5,000 a square for an architectural house. We'd sit at the table with the clients in front of us, and on that day, the client is absolutely shitting themselves. They are way over budget. This thing's just coming at $8,000 a square, should have been $5,000, and you're the bad guy straight away.
What is success to you?
I think it was a learn to love it experience.
And there's always pitfalls that you can fall in, but then you've got no one else to blame but yourself.
Number one thing if you're struggling is to catch up with people about it.
Guys, before we start this episode, let me just quickly jump in here just to thank our content partners, Abodo, for supporting Better Builder. We love what these guys stand for, especially around their sustainability and biodiversity. Abodo is actually thinking way beyond just sustainability, and we know that that is important to more and more clients that builders work with. And all from a family-owned company as well. So thanks, Abodo. We love what you guys do. Now let's kick into this episode. Tony Fraser, thanks for coming on the podcast.
No worries, mate.
Yeah.
Bit odd for me to be sitting in front of a camera talking to fellow like-minded people. I just normally go about my business, and I only get a bit louder when I'm on the jar, you know.
Well,
kind of
we can get some beers down here from upstairs. Chen can maybe bring us some beers down, but it is in the AM right now. So
it is Friday though, so it'll be 5 o'clock somewhere, mate.
Exactly right. So no, I really appreciate you coming on. You've definitely been requested a few times by other respected builders. So that always speaks volumes, right? If you're a builder's builder, obviously that's just your reputation obviously precedes you. So
well, still got a blue collar, mate.
Yeah, there we go. yeah. No, that's really good. So I want to just get a little bit of an idea before we sort of dive into the business side of things and how you sort of got started and grown your business, House of Nautica, up until this point, which has been major success. Talk to me a little bit about your sort of upbringing. Like, where did you grow up, Tony? Like, were you grow up around here, or?
Oh, I was a cowbell ringer from Waikato. Came up here in a young age. I had really hard-working parents who were in the excavation businesses and whatnot. Old man wanted me to go on with him with that stuff, but I was always an independent, wanted to do my own thing. Became a builder. Rest is history from there, really. Did my qualifying time. Went overseas working on expos around the world for the New Zealand government, so was fortunate enough to get a bit of travel in as well as getting paid, and then came back, and we're talking in the 90s there, in the late 80s. I started just after the 87 crash. Didn't really know what those things were about. I remember those years there were the local paper put an advert in, and you'd get the paper and read it, and there was 24 years advertising for the same work. So yeah, I was. Then I started speculating at the age of 21. I got married at 21. My wife was a big part of that, and just went from strength to strength. There was never Saturday or Sunday. Every day was a work day. There's two bits of stuff my old man gave me, and he said one day when I complained about my tax bill, and I said I'm pissed with that, and he says, should never be upset about paying tax, son. You got to earn before you pay, so you're a lucky man. The other bit he gave me is he says, you'll never make any money with these, being your hands. So those first years, of course, I just slaved my guts out Saturday and Sundays. It was just relentless, really. I don't regret it. And then realised that I was never going to make money just with my own set of hands, and expanded from there, really. I was fortunate to be in that time of finances where sections were $60,000. You could put a house on it and sell it for $100,000. You could buy a section for $60,000, put a house on it, sell it for $300,000. So there was really, and you didn't have those super mortgages. And I was entrepreneurial, so I would go to one bank and buy something over there, and then I'd go to another bank and buy something over there, because in those days, of course, there wasn't all the electronic surveillance and everything. So it was if you could work hard, you could make money. It's way different today, So, but that's where we got to there. Got to 96. Started Nautica as it was back then. Nautica came about. Simply, the name came about because we were doing a lot of architectural homes where we would tender. if I could tell anybody, tendering for work is a necessity for a lot of people, but remember the day you win the tender, you are the biggest loser because you were the cheapest.
Yeah.
So tendering is, that's what I had to do, that's where I go. And so anyway, the name Nautica is that we tendered for a lot of work. We got a lot of work around Auckland that was always on the foreshores. They were big architectural homes. I was up to 30 years old at that stage. And so the name Nautical came to mind. So we were nautical homes, but then that was stupid because we had nothing to do with the boat. So then it became Nautica, kind of as a label. And as we went on for years and years, if you can create a label of a company name, it is a good thing. And so we were Nautica Homes. And then that's no different from BJ Builders Homes, or, you know, I won't use other companies' names, but everybody has homes after it. So you're just another one of those. So you always want to be looking for an edgy thing. So instead of Nautica Homes, we just changed it around, became House of Nautica. So it became like a label, which sort of suits our product because it is a label product. So thereafter, House of Nautica was born. We had more and more people working with us. And another thing I want to say to all you guys out there listening is that I'll never say that anybody works for me. No one works for me. Everybody works with me, and I work with them because I have a huge respect for everybody trying to get somewhere in their life. House of Nautica now, or Nautica through the whole years, is up to our 40-plus apprentice now. I've always been a big advocate of giving back to the building industry where I was given a chance once. So if you're out there and you're wondering, and you're always sceptical of the fact of being tied to a young guy who you might not be able to model to or anything, just remember that someone gave you a chance. And you've got to remember to give back. Definitely, yeah.
Yeah,
so.
I think that's really important, and to have that mindset. So when you, and I want to dive in deeper into that, I just want to get a bit of an idea. So you said you started tendering for, and obviously you had to tender at that point because people didn't necessarily know that you were the guy, right? So you had to kind of put your hat in the ring. How did you start tendering on these big architectural homes? Were you just always involved in larger, high detailed homes when you started as an apprentice, or how did you sort of get into that high spec type projects?
That's a good question. As I said to you, I was working overseas and whatnot. I was working in the movie industry, and one of the guys who was a film director at the time was building a place on Waiheke Island.
Cool.
Cadbury Island, I call it, thing full of fruits and nuts over there. But so he had somebody attended the first stage of his property over there, and it turned into a bit of a schmozzle. So he asked whether I'd tender it, and we're going back to 96, and so I tendered it, and I was shitting myself pretty badly because it was an $800,000 tender back then, in my first tender on Waiheke and whatnot. Won the contract, and that was for a very big company in Parnell back there, with architects, and there it was born from there. Word got out pretty quick that we could handle the big jobs and could perform. And so when I go back to that tendering, like I say before, I was slightly negative on it. When you get up the echelon a little bit more in terms of the dollar value, there's a lesser appetite for people to take that risk. So there's more margin in the bigger stuff where you know what you're doing and where you can cement those numbers. With tendering, everybody's too scared to tender. And the reason for that is I have no history. So when I was doing whatever job I did, I'd have, with my wife, we used to do it all by calculator, and we would break all our jobs down into 20 to 30 different areas, and we'd start creating meter rates. Because when you tender, if you tend to sit there and work out your labour, as an example, it's going to take me 2 days to do that roof, and then it's going to take me a day and a half to do that gutter, and then it's going to take me this. By the end of it, you've priced yourself out of a tender because you haven't done your maths previously and got your meter rates. So big thing is, in your learning curve going forward, you must understand meter rates. I learned this also off a guy, Lindsay Aitken from Gelcon Homes, and when I was working alongside him when I was doing specs way back, God, that was in the early 2000s, and he talked about meter rates, and obsessed with it, and he was dead right. And so everything, when the group homes and everything's meter rates and everything. So if you're just doing, no matter what you're doing, if you're doing a deck, get the meter rates. So when you're pricing, you should be able to price a whole house in a day off your meter rates. And so that's where tendering can sometimes start working for you, yeah.
Yeah. And okay, so then you from that project, so that's quite cool. So you got like an 800K project back then. That that might as well be like a $4 million project now, almost, right?
Yeah, it drove me insane. I'm working over there and whatnot, and it nearly cost me my marriage, to be fair. I came home age of 30 with red hair, and one weekend my wife was out. It bent me in terms of mentally, So it sounds really good now, but at the time, yeah. But it was the biggest learner. It was hard work. It was on a fairly big cliff face over there and whatnot, and there was a lot of risk. And I just dug in and did it harder and harder. Didn't matter what day it was. But the reflection and the meter rates that came out of it all started talking to me 2 years and 3 years in.
Yeah, and you made some money on that job?
I did in the end. At the start, I was going backwards big time, getting out of the ground, and hence the reason it was tough on my home life and everything. And thought I'd never be able to make it, but at the end it switched around big time because and there was tags I missed. There was tags in the tenders that I missed. That I did. For instance, they chose 32 colours on the inside. Jesus, I never allowed for that, but I had to wear it. So learning. So as long as you learn, you don't mind losing, providing it's sustainable.
Yeah, 100%. And so okay, so you got a little bit of a taste then for the higher spec homes, and then from there onwards, you just started working on more and more of those type of projects moving forward.
So what came out of there is winning tenders and with architects. I don't mean any disrespect to any architect out there, but what I saw happening back in those days is the architect would promote a house in today's value. Let's say they promoted it $5,000 a square for an architectural house. We'd tender it against two other people possibly. We'd sit at the table with the clients in front of us, and on that day, the client is absolutely shitting themselves. They are way over budget. This thing's just coming at $8,000 a square. Should have been $5,000, and you're the bad guy straight away, as in the guy sitting there who tendered, whilst nothing you're doing. And so straight from day one, they'd push on and find the money, but it was never fun. So I realised what I thought there was a fault, and in terms of the clients. So we started up charging people a small amount for a conceptual plan. So we would, for instance, now we charge the vicinity of sort of $10,000 on a big house and conceptual. And so what we're going to do is we're going to come out and talk to you people. We're going to spend $10,000. Our history back then. I'm talking, not now. I'm only talking today's rates in terms of reality of like $10,000. If it's too much, I won't touch. But out of that, I'm going to give you full concept plans to scale, an addendum so you know what you're getting, and you're going to have a fixed price right there, right now, in basically a month's time. And then we can move forward. So that was the biggest change that allowed me to get away from tendering to start House of Nautica as a bespoke architectural company. I was very fortunate at the time to come across a very entrepreneurial architect who didn't want the world of architecture, bit of a greenie if you like, pretty cool. And we've been on that crusade for a long time now. I now have a couple of architects, but he's still, Dan's his name. He's still, I credit him with a lot of where we went. We could put in front of people, we could give them the whole concept and the dollars before they had to commit to Nautica, and we still do that today.
How's the current construction, the residential construction set up? Does it benefit the client in terms of you got the architects, the client sees the architect? I'm talking now more on the upper end, like say the $2 million plus, hypothetically. People go see the architect draws the plans, 3 builders quote. Normally it comes over budget. Then they have to pick a builder, do the reworks. Like you say, the guy who's cheapest wins, loses. Is this system wrong? The setup wrong out there? Do you think it's in the client's best interest to have the current framework that's available at the moment?
So you just repeated all the downfalls of what I said with the other side. But on the side that you've just presented to me, the client then knows that is the market rate. So the answer to your question is yes, it is correct. It is the right way because they know they've been presented with 2-3 quotes and they know that's right. But where I'm slightly different is they know those meter rates. So we're already starting to make a pattern here that's going back to my initial conversations of meter rates are everything. So when I go out to a site and I start waving my hands around and whatnot, those clients want to know straight away what that house is. What a house, not the house, is going to cost them meter rate wise. And so I'm able to flick that straight to them verbally and whatnot. And I've got to stick to my guns all the way through. So I need to know 100% my history to be able to quote that. So then they have a choice against, well, if I go with an architect who says that, you're a long way down the track before you get to those three people presenting. And they will present at the same numbers we do it because we're doing it. So I have the mentality of when I'm quoting to people and building their houses, as far as I'm concerned, I'm tendering on day one. That's my mentality. I'm not looking to make all my food off that person because I work on turnover, not one-offs.
Yeah.
So your question is correct in that, and so there's two ways of going about it. And, you know, there's all those good architects out there too who align themselves with builders and whatnot. So I'm not here promoting my company today.
There's two different ways of
so
doing
what
it.
is that amalgamation with the architect that they're talking to? You know, and then where there is an amalgamation there, it's the same thing, to be fair.
Yeah, and it's like what you're saying was just like you're saving yourself a bunch of time, right? Because you're kind of coming a bit earlier on, and you're going to give them an idea earlier on. Because what you said there is also, and it's also the clients getting their hopes up, you know, because they want to build their dream home. They assume it's going to cost 2.5, and then 3 builders come back, and so it ranges from 2.9 to 3.4, and then everyone's disappointed, everyone's kind of pissed off, and.
You're basically repeating everything I said earlier. Whereas I'm going to be the guy who stands in front of them at 3.4 on that first day.
Yeah.
And they'll go, well, we can't afford that. And so straight away, you've nullified that pain.
So obviously you've done I've seen some of your projects that you've done. You've done like amazing projects over the years. I want to get a little bit of an idea. People kind of find it interesting, like your company setup and how many guys you've got and that sort of thing. So give me a bit of an idea of your company structure. Like how big is your team? Qualified versus unqualified? Do you have like a big team in the office? How's House of Nautica set up?
Overheads are your biggest killer. So some companies the more overheads you have, the more turnover you've got to do. The more turnover you've got to do, the more times you've got to say yes to somebody your gut feeling doesn't feel right. And trust me, when I was younger and I needed the work and I'd take it, at one stage in my career I had 63 not employees, but contractors direct every week. You're doing 80 grand a week. And I lost money doing it. I was in Christchurch rebuild with that as well. I had 40 down there and 26, I think, up here. I'm back down now, I think, to 10 or 12, plus good subby gangs. But I'm really lean on my overheads in my office because I'm at a stage in my life now where I don't, I'm not greedy for the turnover. It's bullshit, I am. But if I don't like the way something's feeling, I don't have to feed an office. I can say no. So best thing that's happened to me in the last few years, and this is a long way down the track for anybody, is now I have a general manager who was an apprentice with us, absolutely brilliant. Callum's his name, up and coming and whatnot. And we have that, and then we have guys on each side. Our sites are that big builds. All bar one of our direct and contracting, I wouldn't call them employees, did their time with us. So they all know how to build a house. They don't need a guy driving around looking after them doing da-da-da. So we have that, have full-time QS, have full-time in the office, 2 ladies as well, feeding stuff. So at the moment, it's QS, a GM, and myself. And then we have a really good guy that Paul, who does all our civil works, which, if you can believe it or not, he was 17 and I was 20. And in all those years now, which I'm nearly 60, there's only 2 years we haven't worked together. So he runs all that side as well. So everybody has their share of responsibility within their different parameters. So our overheads are very low, considering our turnover at the moment. So biggest thing is not to get overloaded with that, but for you young guys out there and everything, and I have a stepson, so to speak, at the moment who's in building as well, and I'm just saying, get yourself a good lady in the office, get yourself a good mother that's going to come in and has all those attributes to start putting in all of those numbers and creating your meter rates and whatnot. Because if you're working on a Sunday and you're doing bookwork, you're a bloody idiot, because you can be furnishing a little family somewhere by paying that lady $35 an hour, for instance. She's winning on her side, still looks after her family. You're winning because you're spending time with your family on a Sunday. So overheads are a must. If you want to go anywhere and go ahead, overheads are a must. For me now, overheads are a must because I like to go fishing a bit more and whatnot. I'm guilty of not doing it, but that's tomorrow's plan. But so it's always a balance, you know what I mean? Because when you're young, how am I going to do that? How am I going to take on an apprentice and make sure I've got the work? How am I going to take on a lady in the office for 35 hours an hour? But when you sit down and you do your maths and you realise that you're working for $35 at night, and what's that costing your productivity the next day? That's the big thing here. So when we're going to keep carrying on about this conversation for this hour, there's all these little attributes that you're scared of doing because you're not willing to take that step. But when you take that step, going back to what I said earlier, and you end up with too many overheads, like when I had 60 people, they are just chewing its head off every day. And not only that, the guys that are on at the cliff face that are working, they're making mistakes that are costing you because you haven't got the right people like yourself or close-minded people with you looking over them. So that's the balance of that answers that part.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. There's definitely that balance there. And so your company, I want to know how do you guys set yourself apart in the market? I mean, obviously it does make it easier when you have a massive track record to rely on. Sometimes you meet someone, maybe they're from out of town or whatever, and they don't even know who you are from a bar of soap. How do you demonstrate value to prospective clients and get them to choose you outside of just price?
The biggest thing in business that I've always followed in everything is honesty and integrity. And it'll come back in spadefuls. So you could have the best advertising you can get. Okay, you can be the best multimedia lady working for your person, I shouldn't say lady, and out there. But at the end of the day, when those people meet you and you come across, how do they perceive you? Now, honesty, integrity comes across with the way you talk and what you do. But the other thing you get to do is you get to talk about the past, or you've been on a site that has similarities. And that's what it's really about. How do you get those people to come to you? It's word of mouth. So, for instance, look, I didn't do this for the exposure today, but somebody will be listening out there to me and say, geez, I heard this guy the other day, his name was... And you should give him a yell because he just came across as honest and integral. That's the big thing. And everybody wants to... unfortunately, it is a skill and it is an art. And your first appearance when you get a chance with somebody of how to exuberate that you're going to look after their best interests for them, it's all about that. But that comes from that. Most of those leads, like you say, from out of town or anything, they still came from somebody who knew somebody. We're in, what do they call it, 2 degrees in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And that is my biggest... That's the biggest thing. I mean, sure, I've got exposure because I've got signs up on the road and all of that. But when I go back and I talk about my first tender came from honesty, integrity within the film industry, that opened that door, which then opened the door to further tendering and whatnot. So that your integrity carries you through. Sometimes when times get lean and everything, that ain't going to do jack shit for you to find work. You know what I mean? But it is a big way of getting there, yeah.
Yeah, I've literally, not literally, I've just through listening to a lot of experienced builders that patience is really important, making sure you do a good job, and that's your best form of marketing. That sort of always comes through. How important is it to, they say how someone meets you the first time, it's almost like how they see you forever a little bit, So how do you present yourself to these clients, Tony, as a consultant rather than as a guy swinging a hammer? Because you are essentially a consultant at the start, because you're going to help them, especially the pre-construction phase, right?
Yeah.
It's very important to kind of make sure that they feel like they're in the right and solid hands, that you're going to get them ready for construction. How do you present yourself early on when they come and see you, and what sort of process do you take them through?
Well, the first thing they do is they never come and see me. I always go and see them. Because what's the point in them sitting in my office and wondering what these overheads cost? Whereas you go to their premise, whether it's a renovation, most of mine I go to bare blocks of land and whatnot, go way back to the start of the conversations we had with my parents in civil and earth moving and everything. So the first thing I start doing is I can start telling them what that piece of land has got to offer them that they haven't even seen. And so straight away, I'm getting into their property with them before we've even talked about a house. Now, if we take that back a little bit and you go to somebody's house, which I'm not into renovations, and you start talking about renovations, go, wow, if we put a window in there, you could catch that view and we could do this. And then you start flicking them a couple of photos of your iPad, straight away, you've invested your interest into bettering their outcome. So the first thing you're doing is first thing you do is you're looking for an opportunity about how you can bring betterment to what they're trying to achieve. And straight away, you've got them on side that, oh my God, this guy made this suggestion, that suggestion. But then he said, well, I wouldn't go to that sort of, let's just say, I wouldn't go to underfloor heating, for instance, on your tiles for the sake, why don't we run timber through here? Because all you're going to do is spend a whole lot of money on heating. Well, hang on, no one's told me that before. So straight away, that's the first meeting. But then you drop that subject and move on to the next one. So,
how important is it to ask a lot of questions when you first meet them to kind of get a feel of what they're trying to achieve? Because obviously them building a home is just like a bridge to them wanting to achieve something else, right? Whether it's like maybe they're going to expand their family or the mother-in-law's moving in or whatever the thing is that they need the home for. Maybe it's going to be their forever home and whatever it is. How is it important to kind of contextually get that sort of information or not really?
Yeah, well, the thing is that I win a few jobs here and there, is that I've had the comment come back to me and say, you're the first guys come on site that actually told us what we should do rather than saying, what do you want? They already know what they want. They're going to tell you what they want. You need to use all of your history that you have up to that point. It might be just building a deck and you know about, let's get, for instance, on this deck, let's get a level threshold. So I can see you've got kids or whatever, so I can see that we don't want the kids coming in and out of there. So you're not asking them where they want the bloody deck, because they already know where the deck is. They will tell you through the conversation. Be the person when you walk away is that you're the only guy or lady who brought better ideas there for what they thought they wanted. And that's pretty much the key to it. You lead rather than ask and be led for them. Because if you walk away and you just answer of course you answer their questions, that's what they want. But if you just ask them questions, well, they don't feel any better off with you as a builder. I.e., this guy come along, we ended up with this level threshold here because this builder suggested it. And that's why we went with him. But he was actually $2,000 more than the other guy who came round. But I give them the job, and look, and their friends are there, and their little kids are going across it with their little buggies and whatnot, just about walking. Oh, geez, we did one the other week and it wasn't like that. So there's your answer. It doesn't matter how small you are, working your way up, that's the answer. Be positive, be forward, use all your history to give them something betterment before you walk away, because that's the thing. They won't look at the price so heavily then. They want that guy. Okay, so that, and then the next thing you'll be doing other things at the house.
Yeah, I think that's great because it almost tells builders, right? Like, be confident, you're the expert, come forward with your ideas, tell them, have some passion, show them. And because a lot of builders sometimes don't want to they don't want to overstep and they're not confident. Obviously they have their skill set, but they're just not confident in relaying it, but you just got to do it. Yeah.
You just got to do it. I mean, I don't enjoy going out and meeting people I haven't seen before or know about before, but it is part of it. But the thing is, you got one chance to portray that you're better than the next guy. At the end of the day, if you and I are going to see if you're in your car now listening to this, and you're driving to a job an hour after me, and I've been there, and I've lit it up with my history, and I might have a monotone voice because I may not have been born with that, but I'm still going to tell them about the level entry. Meanwhile, you're driving a site, whoever's listening there now, and you don't come up with that, then the guy with the monotone voice, as I'm saying, still wins.
Yeah, 100%. So do you do any marketing out there, Tony, or not really?
Oh, definitely so. GM looks after that and whatnot. Instagram and all of those things.
Yeah.
I mean, do I do it? No, because I'm old school and useless, but yeah.
I love it. So do you only build masonry homes?
No, not at all. We build right across the spectrum, to be fair. Masonry came about because of the leaky home syndrome back in 2003. And we were building all these houses through my apprenticeship and whatnot, and it felt wrong. You knew it was wrong. It was all wrong. The very first house that I tended on Waiheke that we talked about at staff was a masonry home. So that home that I took on that time was way outside my comfort zone, as I said, was a masonry home. And then came back in 2003, and so I started building masonry. Everybody said I was mad, because it was so expensive. But then along came, like I say, 2003, and the world changed. And then we had a lot of people that followed me and tried to do it, but they just didn't have the men on the ground that could understand it, and so they disappeared out of it. But we still do that. But generally, our masonries will be combined with other features, like you see, the weatherboards, whatever, but just to break them up, so we're not just building igloos, you know.
Yeah. And how many projects do you work on at any point in time at the moment?
Oh, look, it's generally only about 5 on a go at one time. Sometimes we'll get up to 8, but we're getting stretched with our overheads. And at that point, I don't want to expand my overheads for the reasons I said before, because once you get those, you've got to feed them. So it's generally, sometimes we might be down to 3, but our houses are generally, if we're doing smaller houses on Takapuna sites or whatnot, they're 300 squares, but most of our stuff is 450, 700 squares. We've done 1,000 square metres, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And what sort of, in that higher end, what's the metre rates, like the average metre rates at the moment that people can expect?
How long is a piece of string? All comes down to the fit out. We've got, go back to those metre rates and everything. So we've found very clever ways of getting metre rates to a good baseline product, being a House of Nautica masonry villa. And so they're pretty much sitting at 5,500 a square, but hey, that's working on 450 squares of house, triple garage. So you got a lot of cabinet space in there that we're not throwing money at. You see, if I was to bring a Nautica down into a 250 square, it'd be a different animal. So it's really hard to quantify for somebody out there listening in terms of, oh, geez, how do they do it for that rate? Well, because they're bloody big houses.
Yeah, for sure. And then also the land, and is it slab up or is it the whole thing, or, like everyone has a different meter rate almost that they throw out there, and they include different things. And so, it's always kind of hard to kind of compare apples with apples.
Well, the big thing about that, I'll add to that, because if you go to site and you talk up a good story like I was talking about before, and you add this on and add that on and add that on, the next thing, you'll put the price there. And so it's a meter rate, for instance. What you've got to do is you've got to be smart about your meter rates. You've got to give them, and if I look at most of you, without being rude, the cookie cutter homes and whatnot, and it's the same with going and buying a boat, you get the baseline for that meter rate, right? And then they take you up from there and take you up from there. And that's where you've got to be mindful going talking about that deck and whatnot. So you say, this is your meter rates and these are your add-ons. So Nautica has a base meter rate, which is, not being rude to anybody else, is a pretty high threshold compared to other people's meter rates, but that's what's become expected. We don't build in that lower meter rate area of because it's turnover. So always be mindful that you're explaining to the person that you're giving them that meter rate ideal compared to somebody else, but these are your add-ons, but these are things that you should consider and why.
Yeah.
Don't price yourself out of it.
Yeah, because you can shoot yourself in the foot, by you try to do everything right, but just the way you present it is wrong, and then you shoot yourself in the foot.
You shoot yourself in your foot. So I'll go out there, do the big spiel, as I said, with all the bits and pieces and everything, but when you come back and you present, my name's Ted, and here's Ted's normal thing for this house and whatnot, and here's the bits we talked about, but you're still competing with the gentleman who's turned up and asked the questions, and that's all he's given them. So just be careful how you present. Yeah,
so in terms of yourself, so do you, when clients come to you, obviously you guys do the design in-house now, right? So it's sort of like a design and build, end to end. So that's great because you can design to budget, and you're going to be able to kind of give them an idea of cost very early on in the process, so that's great. When clients come see you, do you make them, or not make them, but do you have like a preliminary agreement or something that they sign, or is it sort of just like you just sort of work on a handshake? How does it work at the start to kind of ensure that that they're gonna, not just get you to price everything up and put concepts together and then they just walk away and go use someone else?
Yeah, and there's plenty of those people out there. So I'm happy to give all my time, my company's time, as much as it takes. But where I'm engaging any consultants, i.e. an architect, then I expect them to pay that portion of that. But so that if they're not willing to put any skin in the game at all, then it's not a place you want to be. But if you're putting them, so when I talk about architectural costs and everything, I'm talking about a minimal cost, as I talked earlier on and whatnot, that's affordable to people to get the whole contractual resolution in front of them. So it's that affordable part. If it doesn't involve plans, well, you've got nothing. If it doesn't involve costs from someone else, you've got nothing to lose apart from your time. The question is how much time fits the volume of the project. So there's we've got all risk and no income at all until we can get the concepts completed, the costing completed, basically contractual value. Yeah, which is getting back to a tender point they talked about earlier. We're pretty much putting a tender together, no different than if I was putting a tender together for an architect elsewhere, it's got a cost to it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because it's sometimes just good, it's a good way to just get a tight because I guess if you get them, if they pay something, if they don't, then it's great. You can
it's skin in the game.
Yeah, 100%. So Tony, what numbers do you look at that you care about in your business, like that to kind of show you that you're on track? Whether it's you open your zero or whether it's the guys, the breakdown of the team, or what people are working on. Like what sort of there's all levers, right, that different guys look at. What are the levers that you focus on that demonstrates to you that you're on track?
Back costing. Simple as that. It's all back costing. So I talked about meter rates. Then you've used those rates and you've put them into the abacus. You've got the job. You've gone through the job. And you might not do it on every single job, but on each job you will check. And it's no different from saying, oh, okay, I allowed $50,000 for the roof, roof. And then when you got the job and whatnot, and it came in and you had a gain and it would come in at 47, go tick. So that's just a quote, right? But when I get to the next job and I'm quoting it for Nautica and it's got the same roof, whether it be a Euro tray roof, I've then taken that 47,000 and I've put that into a meter rate for that pitch and I've used it on the next house. So I don't have to go and get quotes from everybody. So that's that part. But the biggest part that my levers is we have to compare at the end when it's complete what those meter rates represented on that job, because you still make losses, just don't get me wrong, in parts of the job. But you need to quantify what they relate to. So when they come up again, especially when you get into minimal looking bloody houses, you don't see the detail, but you know it's there and you know the pain's there. Same as there is with retaining walls, concrete in the ground, your meter rates sometimes are well off the whack. So that lever, or they were saying the checks, is you'll know for next time. So that's how you can get more and more refined.
Yeah, because you get the proof,
that's the
right?
big lever. That's the big check. You've got the quality checks and all of that. That's a different animal, yeah.
Okay. And in terms of your financials, do you like to, I mean, obviously we all like good revenue, right? But for you, I guess it's more about what comes out the other end at the bottom. So when you look at do you kind of keep an idea on, gross profit per project, and does it have to be above a certain range at all times?
It varies. You get your wins and you get your losses. Remember that thing I said earlier on about integrity. And when shit hits the fan, don't hide. Fix it. That's integrity. And you make a loss there sometimes. But there's other jobs where you make wins and you go, well, you don't always get the win-win-wins. It averages out,
Yeah.
It averages out.
Let's talk about team. Let's talk about company culture. You're big, and just from the conversations we've had, you're very big on pouring into the younger guys coming through. How many apprentices have you now put through?
Unfortunately, I stopped counting them. We're in the 40s, heading towards 50 a year. We started our Big Red. He started 2 weeks ago. That's our freshie. So it's a continual thing. We generally run minimum of 3, sometimes 7. And when not 7, more 6 to be fair, but when you put that and you say, but hang on a minute, Tony, you said you only had 12 guys, 14 guys. How does that work? Well, it does, because we train them hard and we train them fast, and we make good builders out of them as quickly as we can. Yeah.
So what's your approach to dealing with mentoring, pouring into and training apprentices?
I don't have the input on it now because I'm not working on site.
Yeah.
You can sit in an office and try and train an apprentice all you want, you know. It's like trying to train your dog when he's still sitting in the kennel out the back. Don't work. So that comes down to culture on site that came back from my hard working ethics back in the day, where those guys are still working with me and with the company, and so they're passing that down still now. But you know, these young guys are a lot softer. Their mothers still breastfeed them. It's a bit different, you know. When I started my first apprentice, who I'm still very good friends with, Stevie, and first week I said, "You don't shit at work, mate. We don't have a dunny. You train to shit yourself at home." So that's where it stops, you know. Well, imagine if you said that now, you'd be straight up in front of some bloody, I don't know, parliamentarian dick somewhere, you know. That were the days it was. It ain't that. You just had fire on site and never took the rubbish away, you know. It's terrible. But now you can only get the culture from within. And what I'm finding now is we're all getting older and whatnot. We're wanting to rebirth our culture with the young guys, because my older guys my age, we're all getting grumpy. And so that ain't so good either. So youth is good. Embrace it. Just make sure you got a good arm around it, you know, so you can motor-collie them into what you want, and don't forget to have fun.
Yeah, and how do you cultivate good culture in terms of among the guys? And is it sort of like a top-down approach, or
no? It's not top-down at all. Now, when my company, that's wrong. Not wrong. It doesn't happen that way. It's on site. And if I can give you an example where we just went on a big job up north. We're using some imported labour, and those guys have never had so much fun on a site before. Credit goes to one of our young guys up and coming, Mitch. Fraser is actually my son, and he was running that job, and they had all these press-ups and stuff they had to do when they had a certain word or whatever. They had this culture going on, whether you had your pinny on, you could do it. These guys loved it because they're young. They're young, you know. So if you're an older guy and you've got an apprentice under you still, imagine what it's like for them. It's like working with their parents every day. So get another young guy and let them have some fun, you know.
Yeah, so you're quite open to that, like having a bit of fun, having a laugh, and it's not all just serious.
Mate, building's a hard game as it is. You work in the rain, mate, you know, and we're expected to. Well, at the end of the day, you know, I love it when somebody throws some mud at somebody else, you know, because I'll be the next one to pick it up and do the same, because, you got to have culture, otherwise you just have no fun at all.
Yeah, no, I think I like that as well. Do you guys had any female apprentices coming through?
No, we've only had females in the office structure. That is, it's always a bit of a how do we get on when we do our Christmas do's and whatnot with all the lads, and so there's a bit of culture change over there. But I don't have anything against, you know, the ladies out, the ladies being tradies. Yeah, just haven't been presented with that opportunity as such yet. Yeah. I think you probably see it more in like the electrical and whatnot, where it's not quite so physical. But then again, not saying anything against the ladies, are probably the best finishers you can get around, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is probably like some benefits that we've had one qualified girl, Bex, that came on the podcast a little while ago as well, and we kind of talked around the differences, and I was just sort of asking all male-female questions the whole episode. I felt like I was from the 1950s or something. Yeah. I was like, I'm sorry, let's talk about building. We don't have to talk about the fact that you're a woman the whole time. Okay, so tell me a bit about mistakes. You know, it's very easy to just talk about things going well, but shit goes wrong in construction. It's got high risk, sometimes high reward, sometimes low reward game. Give me an idea of some of the biggest mistakes, I guess, you made over the years. You know, what sort of, give me an idea of what's the biggest financial hit you had to take over the years that sort of, guys want to know, because there's a lot of guys out there that's made mistakes, and they're not the only ones.
Calibers, I'll touch on that because I've had a history of it all in my career as a builder, mainly doing specs and whatnot. And when the GFC hit in 2008, I was given 3 weeks to find $2.5 million, or I lost everything. Everything I had that I'd worked for 30 years. They changed. We all know what LVRs are now. Didn't even know what that meant before. So I was borrowing at the time. Back then I owed $8 million, and I was borrowing an LVR of 50%. GFC, global financial crunch, for you young guys that don't want to talk about, hit. they changed my LVRs down to way down 15%. Basically told me you got, like I said, 3 weeks to find $2.5 million, or you're dead. We take everything. So that came down to all those years of media rates getting better and better at everything, taking more and more gamble. I didn't think I was bulletproof, but I was not afraid of anything with the LVRs in the right place. But what I didn't understand is I didn't understand how callous banks can be. There's one important thing I want to share with you guys that happened when. Okay, so I sold a property. The story there was that I sold a property a couple of weeks later that I had on the market that was worth $2.5 million. I sold it for $1.8 million.
Shit.
And I sold another section. So that got me there. And I'd go home at night, and this is a true story, I would play against my son Mitch in Monopoly. And he was probably, I don't know what age he was there, probably 12. And I beat him up every night at Monopoly. And it was bullshit because I was playing a game for myself. As long as I could keep going past go against my son, I could keep going past go during the day. He never knew that story, but it's a true story. It got me through. So I sold those properties. Now, can you believe this? The property I sold for $1.8 million, she rang me 6 months later and she said, Tony, her name was Sally Curse, lovely lady. I feel really bad. I said, why is that? She said, I just sold your property. I said, well, good for you. She says, yeah, but I got $2.3 million. What am I going to do? I said, we're going to help me go past go. She says, what do you mean? I said, I'm going to build you a house now. It's only fair. I went on and bought another 2 houses for Sally. So when you hit the bottom, own it. I'll tell you one of my best stories ever is that when I was given that certain amount of weeks to find $2.3 million, I was in the 18th story of a certain bank, won't say it, but a good bank at the time. And they went to walk away, and the head guy said to me, he said, well, at least you're not putting your head in the sand like other guys are out there, Tony. Because I said, you know why I'll never hit my head in the sand? I said, no. I says, because my balls hang out the back and you ain't getting them. Went on, sold the property, true story, sold the 2 properties. They came out with a big honcho again, and they all laughed, took me out for lunch, and they said the other guys with their head in the sand, they lost their balls. And that was always a story that those particular guys. But I said earlier on, there's something I really want to mention to you here, team, is that when you're going through and you're winning all of those tenders and you keep making money, it's wonderful. And then you take those big leaps in terms of financial risk. Just keep something really in mind that I learnt that I sort of got wrong when it all went wrong. I had nothing much passive. Okay, I had a company that had a lot of stuff, and I had paid pretty much whenever you make money in big speculative operations with GST involved. Remember, you're paying 28% tax. You're paying 15% GST. Also, that money still stays in your company as an exposure unless you clean it out and pay more tax to have it totally yours and safe. So remember, when you are taking on a really big financial risk, your 50% of your profit is going to go in tax. So your whole risk that you're going after, you're risking that for tax. And like I said earlier on, my old man told me, no problem with paying tax. But when it all turned to shit that day and I had to downsell those properties, where was the other person who had taken 50% of all of my gain to help me? Nowhere to be seen. So bear that in mind. I learned from that, and I learned how to do. So you all want to chase the dollar and chase that reward you were talking about before with profit, profit, profit. Where does it end up? More profit, more profit. Where does it really end up? So I want you all to think about, stand back and think about passive income alongside what you're doing. Look for passive income that you can use the skills you've got to bring betterment to that. Now, I'm not going to talk out of frame here and whatnot, but the difference now, I've just got into a massive investment again now, is I went away after that burning of 2008, and I've spent the last probably 14 years too scared to go near a bank. It burnt me. You know, it's like a drowning experience. Not that I've had one. And so what I learned about that was to go and do passive. So I went and did my passive. and I've built up quite a portfolio of things I could add value to over the years. Now, don't get me wrong here, people. Some of my passive stuff is I've built houses and whatnot, and I can't sell them for 10 years, so I'm locked in because I'm tainted. And I don't have a problem paying tax, but I'm tainted. So that sort of stuffs up. But the fact now that what I've got now is I've got a real backbone, or I've got equity that the banks love. And if I got in the stuck again, as I once did, I can flip my equity. Sure, I'd still be up for tax because I'm not qualified in that 10 year on one or two things. Like I say, I'm not. I've never evaded tax in my life. I don't wish to. If you want to evade tax, you're an arsehole. It pays for hospitals. It pays for people who need it. Don't ever think like that. But also remember what I told you, that when I kept taking those huge risks and making that loot, I was risking that to give half it away. So, want you to think about that team out there. Just because I had a gentleman talk to me the other week, and he'll listen to this and he'll know exactly who he is because he's been on here. And he had that conversation with me the other day, and that's the information I gave him. But today's about sharing. Yeah, sharing my 2008 experience. What was that? I could share with you all day how to get a job and how I get a job and all of that. But it's all about the big thing. The other thing is don't be afraid to pay somebody $450 an hour to advise you on accountancy things. You might have an accountant that's kind of okay. Don't be scared to go and spend $450 an hour and get the proper vehicles that you should be, or the routes that you should be running. Don't get me wrong here. I'm not talking about evasion. I'm just talking about how things should ideally be done. And I'm still doing specs now, and I'm still paying tax, and I'm happy to pay tax. But I'll never forget when I did it, and I made it, and then I nearly lost it all. And there was nobody else coming to help me. Not the person that had taken 50% of the spoils didn't. So there's, drifted a little bit from your conversation, I guess.
No, that's really, really good. I think that's great advice, because you do need that passive side as well. Because you're building for the long term and you're building up that equity is really important. We talked earlier off air a little bit around opportunities that builders can take advantage of. I think builders, a lot of times, especially the guys who've been in the game a long time, they underestimate the value that they can bring to a deal or to the market. Like I was talking to a builder yesterday, a very experienced guy, and he goes, I don't want to hit anyone up for money or anything like that. And we kind of just had that conversation. No, you're presenting an opportunity for a guy, because you've got, even if you're a builder, we're talking about, building something for say $4 million. If he could build it at a good rate, like now you're immediately bringing at least $400,000 worth of value, because you're the builder. Like you can build it for much cheaper and whatnot. And then that way, you can find someone else that's maybe the money man, or someone, or maybe even do, like you mentioned, a vendor finance deal or something where someone else could bring different value. How important is it for builders to obviously, first of all, recognize what they bring to the market and what skill they have, and then also to find maybe other people with complementary skills, or maybe find some deals that they can take advantage of? Talk to me a little about that.
Well, when I talked to you before about when I was in the stuck really bad, is because I was involved in a joint venture with a school teacher, lovely lady, definitely so. But I was isolated in terms of money. When it turned bad, it all turned bad because I was the one backing it all. So where you have an opportunity with like-minded people financially, well worth. It's better to syndicate. So if you ever go to an auction and you see everybody at the auction, and the lower house buyers and whatnot, there's 20 bidders. But if you go to a house that's selling for let's go to $2 million, and it's an opportunity, there's only 4 or 5 bidders. So imagine if you were amalgamated with 2 other people and you were going to buy that house and do it up, that you're only up against 3 or 4 other people rather than your little nest egg at the bottom. So you're fighting over it. So there's a smaller margin involved. So you're better to use the mindset of, I'm better to share a bigger part of the parcel, and there's better money to be made, but there's also sharing of that grief in terms of the responsibilities to go with those loans and whatnot. One thing you should always be mindful out there is that vendor finance, vendor sharing. So if you come across somebody who has an ideal opportunity, and I'm not talking about a little old lady here, I'm not talking about that, I'm not talking about taking advantage of people, but where there's an opportunity, and say there was a person on a house with a spare site, and you could move that house and you could develop the back of it and whatnot. And imagine you saying to that vendor, hey, I could move your house, I could do it all up, and so you're going to spend, say, 250 grand on that because you've got only a budget of $500,000. But what I want to do is I actually want to build on the back of your section. So I'm going to move your house, I'm going to do it up with you, you're a vendor, you're winning, but I'm not going to pay for your section until I'm building the house halfway through. So the win-win for the vendor is that she's going to get a house done up and everything, and you're going to get onto a parcel of land at the back that you haven't got the dough for at the moment, but when you get there and it's titled, because imagine if you had to buy that whole thing and you had to separate it, there's a whole year that you have to bridge finance that thing. So always be looking for, how could I share this with somebody rather than take it all myself? Because it lowers the risk. And you can go, but anyway, that lady, she just made $300,000 out of that deal because I did it for her. But it enabled you to make $500,000 on a spec at the end. So that's where share. Don't be greedy.
Yeah, I think that's really good. Leave some profit on the table for another guy as well. And in this market, there's a lot of those opportunities, right? That's coming up at the moment.
You guys, when I talked about that going around with a deck and stuff earlier on, those opportunities are under your nose all the time. But you get so focused on next week's work, that I need that work for my boys for the next month, that you actually don't stand back on the roadside as you leave, because you never bring up that opportunity at the first meeting, because that'd be rude and wrong. But when you leave, it's like having stand back 5x5 in your safety meeting. Stand back and look at this whole thing and see if there's another opportunity there. Should you get the job for the deck, I keep waffling on about that, then there's why are we doing this deck? What about this opportunity?
Yeah, 100%. In terms of, people talking a lot about success, making money. Obviously, everyone wants to make money. Everyone wants to be successful. Where you're at your career now, Tony, what does success mean to you now?
Success to me is, my wife said to me once when I was obsessed with it all, and she said, when is enough enough? And I couldn't answer it. And that's wrong. That's not where you want to be. I'm at success now because I'm working more hours than I want to, but I love what I'm doing. I'm proud of what I'm doing. I'm only as good as my whole team around me. So if my team or some of my team were to pull up ship tomorrow and go, I'd pack up on that side of it, probably just go into specking, because it's a lot of hard work and you're only as good as the people around you, So if you're enjoying what you're doing, that's the most important thing. Up till the age of 45, it's all about profit. It's all about getting ahead, because you're setting up for the rest of your life. But my big thing now is, for me, I don't want to. My kids are, 33 down to 25. I don't want to gift them my money at the end. I'm actually starting now to teach them how to make their own money and share with them. I can make it easy for them and open doors in terms of financial. But I want to teach them the exact same thing I just spoke about, was where are the opportunities? Teach them the opportunities, because somebody else is going to sniff it out otherwise. So the biggest thing I can give my kids is that one day when I'm decrepit and stuffed, that it's not over for them. The next generation takes off, and I'm like-minded on that as well. I have a lot of apprentices been through with me. They'll still ring me up when they're working for somebody else, come and look at a house, and what do you think of this? I've got this crazy idea. I'm going, it's not crazy, So that's where I'm at the moment. That's what makes me tick. I wish I was 40 again. Yeah, but I've had a good go. I'm also very mindful that you always got to be mindful of the bottom feeders out there. And the bottom feeders, you feed the bottom feeders and you throw them a bit of extra food and whatnot, and they can make that into something better for themselves, and watch them grow. That's a really cool thing. Never stomp on a flourishing little, green shoot, because they could end up being part of your paddock.
Yeah, 100%. And kind of family life, being a dad, what sort of advice? I mean, there's a lot of guys that are now in their 40s or whatever, or, but younger, they got families. Is there any sort of lessons that you've learned over the years being a business owner, being a dad, family man, how to navigate all that? Because it is a little bit of, this balance is such a, I don't know if balance is really something that exists, but how do you what advice do you have to younger guys to kind of navigate family life, business life?
There's a, I talked earlier on about there was never a Saturday or Sunday, and there wasn't. I didn't see my kids grow up. Do I regret that? No, I don't. For the reason is that what I just spoke about a second ago as well, is that I'm now going to help my kids get ahead and everything. So those hard work years and missing out on that was what it was, but there's a benefit of it. It's changed a lot now. No offence, is that guys are expected to do a lot more. I just get up and go to work every day, and my good wife would look after the kids and whatnot. And it's not like that now. So it's and that's a good thing, because that stops what happened to me. But there's one thing I did. I don't know, it's a bit of bullshit really, but the one thing I did is I never missed any of my school camps with my kids. And I like being a dickhead, and I was always I always set out to be the best dad that was there in terms of fun with the kids, and they used to give me all the mongrel kids to sleep with and whatnot and try and keep them under lid. Well, we won the best farting competitions in our room and everything. I had a lot of fun with my kids as they grew up through the years. As I said earlier on, as we're apprentices, as youth is good. The only thing I can say to you guys is, you're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to put in those extra hours. Make sure that you have that lady that I talked about for $35 an hour, so that you can have that quality time with the kids, which I didn't. Unfortunately enough, my wife did that. And the advice is, because I went on school camps and I became a cool dad, those kids, which are all still friends with my kids and everything, I'm still that dad they come and see. So I'm actually getting back in spadeful now. I'm going to weddings with my bloody kids' friends from school. So you make it up in that sense, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So not to be necessarily too hard on yourself if you're putting in the hard work, because it will pay off. Will pay off later.
Yeah, well, that's the difference. That's what makes you different from the guy who just turns up and doesn't go there, But hey, I'm a grandfather now, just of a couple of months, and I thought, well, see how that goes, but I'm loving that, I'm not going to make that mistake again.
Yeah.
Stuff work.
Congratulations on that. That's exciting. Is it your first one?
Yeah, well, second, sorry. I've got
second
two.
grandchild, yeah.
Yep.
That's very exciting.
Little girl and little boy, so it's bloody awesome, So, yeah, bring on the school camps and rugby training. I trained all of my kids at rugby too. I was a rugby coach for years, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, yeah. Family life is different, but it's very important. Happy wife, happy life, happy family, happy life,
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so in terms of, the mental health, people have been talking a lot, especially all the younger people, it's very trendy, talking about mental health. So people are, there are obviously people really struggling as well. So how do you sort of approach that? Have you ever struggled with your mental health to kind of, obviously there's times it's tough that you have to go through as a business person, and life is sometimes hard, right? But have you ever struggled with mental health, and how do you sort of, what do you do practically, I guess, to kind of help you stay on track?
I've always been a hard bastard and whatnot, and when I talked to you earlier about, when the GFC came and I was really buggered and everything, financially, everything, and I didn't get on with my old man for half of our lives, but certainly in the end we were our best mates. But one day I got to thank my old man after that GFC, and I said to the old man, I said, I want to thank you. He says, what for? I said, for being a fucking asshole. And you were so hard on me when I was young. And I said, without that, I wouldn't have made it. I wouldn't have made it through those hardships. I would have called up in a ball and it would have been all over. I would have had my head in the sand. Of course, we won't talk about that story again. But I was fortunate that I had those genes that were gave me resilience at the time of need. It's a very dark place, and it's mainly to do with when shit hits the fan and financial. And look, your best advocates is when certain things like that happen, is you've got to share your burden. I mean, I was fortunate enough, I played rugby a lot of my life, and we used to go to therapy every Thursday night, and the therapists were my mates. We'd play a bit of touch and drink some beer, and that was really good therapy because we were like-minded people. Always have people you can share things with, and of course your partner would be one of them, but that becomes a burden to them as well. So always align with your mates and share what's going on and whatnot. I've I've had 40 apprentices, as I've said, and I've had a couple of them, and I've had mental health issues with my workers. So the biggest thing with mental health is people don't talk about it, and they also, you remember that if you're getting ahead, hence the reason you're listening to this podcast today, the bottom feeders won't be. And so when I talk about bottom feeders, people trying to find their way in their life. And the big thing I want to say about today is I've had a couple of apprentices, and I'm talking 2 or 3 that have had mental depression issues. Bottle it up, and bottle it up. And no one helps because you don't know, because at the end of the day, you just want them there on time and you just got your deadlines to make. But remember, everything about you listening today is for you to get ahead. But what if you have somebody who can't get ahead? What if you've got somebody that has depression? What are you going to do? Because you don't know that you're their last bastion, because things are probably folding around their life at home and everything. And the one thing a person with a mental depressive state is that if they have to get up and go to work, and they can go to work and they can actually perform that day, they're another day closer to getting tools to help themselves. The day that you let them down as the person who works alongside them is the day you've failed to recognise how lucky you are in your life. What I mean that is that you're getting by, and you take that away from them. You've taken away the biggest thing that can help them get over it. Now, the people that I've talked about, and I won't say names and whatnot, that had mental depression within my company, one's still working for me, one's now running a big corporation company, others are doing just fine. But on the day that I found out on one of them, good lad, he's now worked for me for, I think, 30 years, he's back with us again, I love him to death, and his family had given up on him, no one was doing, and I'd had enough, and to be fair, I was going to work that day to sack him. Until one of my fellow lads who was running the job there, he says, oh, look, he was in this morning, and there was tears and whatnot, and this is where he's at. And I said, really? I didn't pick it. And it was mental depression. I called all my boys on that site straight to a meeting, didn't even consult him, and brought him in. And I says, guess what, boys? You're not going to like this, but he's got a little bit of depression going on. And that's not a problem, because he's family. We're family. And from now on, boys, we all know that you are struggling with life a little bit at the moment. And guess what? We're here to help. Now, we're not just going to give you a week off and say it's going to be okay, because it's not. What we're going to do as a team is we're going to understand on days when you ring up and you say, I just am not functioning today. And what we're going to do at 3 p.m, we're going to check in on them. And we're going to try and get them to work tomorrow. And if it's not tomorrow, it'll be the next day and the next day. Because what we want to do is we want to show back the loyalty he'd given to us. And that was probably 10 or so years ago now. And as I said, he's working with us now. He's moved, he's bought himself a little farm. He's doing well in life. But what if that day, what if I carried on, and I did carry on with what I thought I was going to do, was he's just not performing for us, let's be done with it. What if I hadn't taken that into mind? And I tell you what, you can make all the money you want, as we're talking about. But I tell you what, nothing makes me more prouder than when I go to work or go to the jobs and he's there, and you see those teeth. And then if you listen to this, mate, I just want to tell you how much I love you, because you're the man who got yourself through this, not us. You just happen to be part of a family that cared. So you guys listening to this out there, it is not trendy. It's a real thing, and it's terrible for those that are in it. And like myself, I would never understand it, because I was in the darkest, deepest places, yet I was born with lucky genes. And you get genes on certain things. I mean, people people who live long lives, they just got given genes. But some people just, with that depression, it's a terrible thing. And you can't see it, but you can help it. You can't treat it, but you can help it. So it's a big takeout for today for me, for you people out there. Remember, stand back, as I said before, and look, what is it like for them? Yeah. But also be careful too that then you don't get taken for a ride, because, like you're saying, it's trendy out there, and I'll just ring in today because I don't feel that great. The whole team's got to know, and the whole team's got to be about getting him back there, so that's his best part of the week.
Yeah. I think that's great. And I think that yeah, that's a really good place to finish up our chat as well. I think that was really, really good, Tony, and I think that's it's a good reminder because we can all be so self-involved and self-focused that just look around and see if someone is struggling to reach out. And there's different ways of doing it. I think the way you did it was just like a very like abrasive way, but I think
it was in your face, but
it did its job, right?
Yeah.
And so so I appreciate you coming on today as well. We've normally got some just a few rapid fire questions in the end, if you wouldn't mind running through those.
Well, it'd be good instead of me talking somebody much, right?
No, I've been really loving it, and I think a lot of guys sort of got a lot out of this as well. So that was brilliant. So remind me. Okay, so these are just quick fire questions. You can just pass on them if you don't want to answer them either. But it's just to give people a bit of a snapshot around you and the business as well. So remind me, how big is your team?
Oh, only 12 at the moment. Yeah.
What's your crew mix between qualified versus unqualified?
I would say it's, believe it or not, it's 60% qualified, 40%, with props.
Yeah, cool. How many projects did you complete last year?
Oh, I don't know. I'd have to count them up. Only probably 8.
Cool. Yeah. Turnover ranges, 1 to 3, 3 to 5 mil, 5 to 7, 7 to 10, 10 to 15, or 15 plus.
Oh, I'm never too scared. It doesn't matter the size. I'm starting one next week, which is a $300,000 pool area, pool room, swimming pool and stuff on somebody who bought an original house of mine. We just poured a floor last week on an $8 million build. So
right, so it ranges.
300 grand, 8 mil.
Yeah. What's the lowest gross profit margin building company should be aiming for at least?
Commercial is well down to what I'd find acceptable. I'm always trying to get to 12%. I sort of mix that in terms of I always put it at 12%. 3% is risk management after math. So you try to make 9%. Otherwise, I don't think you should be there.
Yeah,
it's too much risk for the reward.
100%. Sometimes
I've made more, no doubt about that. But that's the bottom line when your accountant puts it out at the end. That's what it should be spitting.
Okay. Free quote or paid quote?
Free quote all day long. Otherwise, how do you get in the game?
Architect or design in-house?
Well, the big job I just talked about is architect, but it's for a client of ours. 95% of our stuff is in-house.
Cool.
In-house takes time. When I told you my journey, it didn't start with in-house,
Yeah. You're going to have to get there.
Yeah.
QS or price yourself?
Both. I look over them still. I had a bad part of my life where one of my QSs stuffed it all up, and so I never trusted again, but I trust now because life's too short to piddle around. But
yeah.
Question, how can you go out at that first meeting and spit out numbers if you don't understand them?
Yeah, that's a good answer. Project management software or spreadsheets?
Both.
Texting or talking on the phone?
Well, if you asked me 4 years ago to be talking, but now I don't want to get caught up with people because everybody wants to talk to you. So texting, mate.
Yeah, people don't talk on the phone that much anymore, right?
Yeah.
Would you rather have a beer with A, an architect, B, a subby, or C, a council member?
I'd love to have one with a council member, but I've never found one to drink with yet.
Yeah. Are you a jock or a hippie?
I'm a jock.
Do you like wine or whiskey?
I used to drink whiskey in those dark hours, and that did me no good with my wife. So I'm a wine man now.
It's like the sound of the turning, the whiskey cork opening, and the wife kind of going, "Oh, another one."
When it's bad, yeah. Or some of the therapy lessons we have on Thursday night with the rugby boys, we will tend to screw a cap up and taking it off sometimes.
Yeah. Or the sound of the ice hitting the glass, Yeah. Are you too mean or too nice to your staff?
Oh, you'd have to ask them that opinion, to be fair. I think if you're nasty, then why would they want to be there?
Yeah. Okay, I think that's a good answer. Best piece of advice you've ever received?
My old man telling me with my hands, you'll never make money out of these.
Leverage. Yeah.
Not leverage, just how how can I make money out of that nail going in without using a hammer or a nail gun?
Yeah, that's a good way to just kind
I
of.
mean,
think
there's plenty of
about
other advice I've got in my life, And another mentor said to me one day, he said, "You're just a rough bloody diamond, and you're just going to have to polish yourself." And he was right.
Yeah, very good. That's it. I guess my last question is: did you have fun?
Oh, I did actually. Time passed pretty quick. To the people out there listening, I've got to listen to one of these myself. Shows you how old and farty I am. I'm just hoping something came out of. I didn't want today to be about me. I didn't want it to be about any advertorial part of it. I tried to break things down where you might be going on your path out there listening, and there's another side to it, because sadly I wish I was 40 again like you guys out there, but I'm not, and I'm happy and I'm glad I got to share today's ins and outs of where pluses and minuses I got to. So I really appreciate the fact that you were taking this out to the people. I want everybody to aspire to enjoying their life and building as I have, because I've loved it and I'm still loving it. So cheers.
Yeah, no, that's very awesome. I think I was just thinking now, like there's knowledge and then there's wisdom, right? And I think we've got a bit of both today. So I really appreciate you coming on. Thanks, Tony.
No worries. Cheers.